All right, let's talk about a huge, and I mean huge, challenge in any large-scale project. How do you make absolutely sure that the thing you're building is actually what the business needs? It's the question that can make or break millions of dollars, and today we're going to break down exactly how to get it right.
So let's start with a number, 37%. The Project Management Institute found that this is the percentage of projects that fail, not because of bad engineering or a lazy team, but because their objectives were never clear to begin with. That's more than 1 in 3 projects stumbling before they even get started. Crazy, right?
And that really brings us to the core question here. Why? Why is there such a massive disconnect? How can so many expensive, complicated projects completely miss the mark on what they were supposed to achieve in the first place? So here's our game plan. We'll start by digging into that core failure problem. Then we'll build the foundation for success, getting our key terms straight. We'll look at a cautionary tale of what happens when things go wrong, then arm you with a toolkit to make sure they go right. And after that, we'll see a success story in action, before I leave you with one final, crucial question. You see, the problem usually isn't about a lack of skill or effort. It's a disconnect. It's this massive gap between the high-level strategy decided in the boardroom, the why we're even doing this, and the day-to-day execution on the ground, the what we're actually building. So to bridge that gap, we need to build a really solid foundation. And it all starts with getting 3 concepts crystal clear: the goal, the objective, and the performance outcome. Now, they might sound kind of similar, but trust me, understanding the difference between them is everything. First up, you've got the goal. Think of this as the big, ambitious vision, your North Star. A goal might be something like to become the #1 petrochemical distributor in the Middle East. It's broad, it's strategic, and it tells you the destination, but it doesn't really tell you how you're going to get there. That's where the objective comes in. This is the how. Objectives are what break that huge goal down into real actionable steps. They have deadlines, they're tied to resources, they're basically the major milestones on your roadmap to achieving that big goal. And this is the critical part, the performance outcome. This is the hard, measurable proof that you're actually succeeding. It's not just about, say, building a plant. It's about building a plant that can produce 4,000 tons of plastic a day, is within 15 kilometers of a shipping port, and meets every single regulation. These are the specific, number-driven results that create real value. So you can see the flow here, right? It goes from the really big picture goal down to the tactical objectives and finally to the nitty-gritty measurable outcomes. This is the chain of command, the logic that connects the boardroom vision all the way down to the project site. And when that chain breaks, well, that's when disaster strikes.
Let's look at what happens when that chain completely falls apart. This is a real-world story, a perfect example of what not to do. And believe me, the consequences were pretty severe.
Our story takes place in Alberta, Canada, back in 2012. A project kicks off to install a new pump house. The starting budget, $38 million. Sounds straightforward enough, right? But things went sideways. And they went sideways fast. By the time the project was finally done, the final cost came in with a 60% overrun. 60%! Just a massive financial blow. But that wasn't even the worst of it.
The schedule was even worse, an 80% schedule overrun. So the project was catastrophically late and wildly over budget. You have to ask, what on earth happened?
Well, the root cause was almost painfully simple. The engineering firm didn't mess up some complex calculation. No, they failed at basic communication. They made one single critical assumption, that new just meant a copy of the old one. They completely missed the actual performance outcomes, like the fact that the new pump house needed a much longer lifespan. It's a perfect example of how one little misunderstanding at the start can snowball into millions of dollars of waste.
Okay, so how do we avoid our own Alberta pump house disaster? The really good news is there are proven tools and frameworks out there designed specifically to create that clarity and alignment right from day one.
One great high-level tool is the logic model. Think of it like a visual roadmap for your entire project. It connects all the dots, the resources you're putting in, the activities you're doing, and the goals you're trying to hit. It's an incredibly powerful way to get every single stakeholder, from the CEO to the engineer, looking at the same map.
Now, for drilling down into those objectives and outcomes, the SMART framework is an industry standard for a reason. It's a checklist that forces you to make your goals specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It sounds simple, but it is so effective at turning fuzzy ideas into rock-solid targets that leaves zero room for misinterpretation.
And hey, for those of you working in faster, more agile projects, there's another great framework called CLEAR. It's similar, but it puts more emphasis on things like collaboration, which is perfect for environments where things change quickly. The bottom line is, having a structured framework is non-negotiable.
All right, now for the horror stories. Let's flip the script. We've seen the failure. Now let's look at a massive success. This story from the UK is a brilliant example of how focusing on outcomes can rescue a project that's on the brink of collapse.
So a huge project to modernize 120 miles of railway was in serious trouble. The initial design was done, they looked at the numbers, and they were facing a jaw-dropping £100 million budget gap. The project just stalled. It looked like it was completely dead in the water.
So what did they do? They pivoted. Instead of being stuck with this incredibly expensive design, they went back to square one. They used a process called value engineering to ask a really simple question. What are the outcomes this project absolutely must deliver? By focusing like a laser on that question, they found a way to bring the whole project back on budget without sacrificing any of the core goals.
And this right here is the secret sauce. The team wasn't just handed a rigid blueprint and told, build this. They were given clear performance outcomes. Give us a consistent train timetable, make sure the trains run this often, and cut down journey times. Focusing on the result, not the method, gave them the freedom to get creative, to find savings, and ultimately to save the entire project.
All of this, the good and the bad, really builds to one central idea. If you take just one thing away from our time together today, let it be this critical shift in mindset that is the key to real project success. This quote from our source material just hits the nail on the head. In so many projects, the design becomes this sacred artifact, right? It's treated like it's written in stone, an unchangeable set of instructions, instead of what it really is, just a tool to get a result. And that leaves us with one final, provocative question for you to take back to your team. Look at the projects you're working on right now. Is your design a rigid, sacred artifact that has to be followed no matter the cost? Or is it a flexible, adaptable tool that exists for only one reason, to deliver specific, measurable, and valuable business outcomes? The answer to that question could make all the difference.